Hi there.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? Are you adjusting to the cold weather now?
Oh my gosh, how stupid cold has it been, right? Isn't that ridiculous?
It is.
Um, um, Julie, where are you in those pretty short sleeves?
I'm in Venice, Florida.
Are you really?
I'm visiting my sister and brother-in-law.
I knew that that was not a Nahant clothing line. Well done. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful warm.
It is, it's beautiful here today. I just arrived
Oh.
this morning. Well, it's around 80, no, about 78 degrees right now.
See, that's a very nice, respectable temperature. So I like
La 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 la
I
la la.
Sorry, Bob.
it's a respectable temperature. I was out. I like to walk in the morning before I go to work, and um, I can't bring myself to walk in single digits. I'm a double digit kind of girl. It 6 degrees was stupid.
Yeah,
I
it is.
just-
Is it
it-
about 46 degrees there now, though? Is it warmer?
yes. Oh yes. I went. Well, it must be warmer. The neighbor's outside barbecuing.
I hope it's not my neighbor.
Oh my gosh, it cracks me up that he's out barbecuing. Really? Um, so you can tell lifelong New Englanders. You can tell natives.
Exactly.
I was
Have
about
I
to
seen
say, what's wrong with that? It's
nothing at all? It just cracks me up. I'm not a natural. That's all. I'm just not a natural.
where did
Um,
you grow up?
I grew up in northern Vermont, and then I moved to Pennsylvania when I was like 12 or 14, and I was never coming north again. And look where I live. You never know where life's going to take you.
Right, that's
You,
true.
you you never know. But I know that I'm supposed to be a snowbird. I'm supposed to be. Bob, I sent you an email a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Um, that I don't see anything else for finance on the calendar.
Oh, going forward?
Oh, going forward, there's not. I need to get them all out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. But did I get your email?
Oh, I sent it to somebody. I hope that was to you. Wait, I'll check. Oh,
I didn't get it.
no, I sent it to bob.vanderslice@outlook.com.
Oh, don't use that.
I don't know where that came from.
It's rvanderslice@comcast.net.
Well, the question was only, I didn't see any finance meetings. Is
Oh.
that in the queue to be added? So, but it also explains why you didn't answer me.
Exactly. It was not intentional.
No, I'm teasing you.
I know. And I got a note from Peter Barba. He is returning from New York at like this hour. So he's going to join us, but he's going to join us late.
Okay.
Who do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Barb, I'm going to
Oh,
send her the link. I'll get her the link.
okay, 5. 5 is a quorum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that true?
I think so.
Yeah, that would be right.
Hey, Bob,
Yes, sir.
when you submit those meeting notices through the website,
Yeah.
there's a way to like input the Zoom link as a hyperlink. So then when it gets posted on the calendar, it's clickable.
Right.
Do you know how to do that?
Clearly, I don't.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I'll walk you through it before you do your
Oh, there
next
you
one.
are.
Hi.
Hi, Barbara.
That's
Good
it.
to see you.
That's been bugging me is I know it just shows up as text and I'm keep looking at it saying, well, that's not really convenient for.
Where you put the agenda in, there's like a little toolbar right there, and there's a little thing that looks like a paper clip. And
Yeah.
that you click on that and you enter the
The whole the URL
hyperlink in
there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll figure that out.
Oh, that would
Thank
be
you.
great. Thanks.
And everyone else thanks you too.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know. It is what, a couple minutes after 7.
Two.
2 minutes after 7. Bill,
Specific.
your background picture, it's gone. I know it's gone.
Oh, yes, I sold the goddamn boat. I'm so happy.
Happy, second happiest, or maybe, I don't know. Second happiest was when you bought it, I guess.
That's true.
All right, anyway, so it's 2 or 3 minutes after 7. We have a quorum. So present from the Finance Committee is in Zoom order, Bob Vanderslice, Judy Zahora, Julie Tarby, Barbara Beatty, Dana Sheehan, and I don't know, oh, Phil, your picture's giant, so DeWitt Brown as well. And Zach of the DPW has joined us. Tony, the town administrator, has joined us. Michelle Capano is here. Who else is here? Oh, Diane Monteith is here as well. Welcome. So anyway, Finance Committee meeting is now in order. First order of business would be to approve all prior minutes. I think we have
Two
2
sets.
sets, right? Yeah, Barbara did one and Julie did one.
Barbie, do you want to go ahead with the 16th?
Yes. Do people see anything they think should be changed? Isn't that how we do it?
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
I make a motion to
thank
approve.
you.
Second,
All in favor?
Brown eye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Army, aye.
Can I
Ju-
vote
Ju-
on it? Maybe not, because I made them.
You could vote on it.
Oh,
Yeah, I
maybe
can
I,
She and I.
Zahora, aye.
All right, so the meeting, those minutes are approved, and then there's a set that Julie did as well.
Right.
I move to approve.
I
Second,
second.
Okay, all in favor, Vanderslice, aye.
Brown eye.
Maybe I.
Army, aye.
Zahora, aye.
I'm jealous.
She and I.
All right, so they are approved. Okay, then let's move on. On our schedule for tonight is the DPW budget, the library, and culture and recreation. And I guess since they were listed in, I believe, that order, let's do them in that order. So let me see.
Zach.
Yep, I think Zach, I just wanted to quickly look up who the liaisons were. I believe it's
Well,
you and it's DeWitt and Dana, I believe. So do you guys want to take it away, or Zach, do you want to just jump in here?
Not sure. Is this for the water and sewer? The water and sewer, the liaison were DeWitt and Dana. Is this for the water sewer? Or is this for the general fund?
No, Enterprise, it was with actually Peter. Allison and I met with him earlier this week or last week.
It's for all of the above, and I'm gonna leave it to you guys, the order in which you want to tackle it.
I mean, I can go through it line by line, but I mean, if there's any.
No, Zach, let me
picture
give
questions.
Zach, let me give the overview, and then if the committee has any like specific questions, you could probably, give them more of a
Yeah.
detailed answer than I could.
Yeah. No worries.
So essentially, the enterprise accounts are, pretty much made up of, for the bulk of the cost of it is a mix between the salaries and the assessments. So if you're on the water side, it's the MWRA assessment. If you're on the sewer side, it's the Lynn Water Sewer Treatment Plan assessment. And then if you're talking about waste, rubbish, trash, it's really the waste management contract. Those are like your three biggest, impacts to the overall total of those each individual enterprise accounts. The salaries that are included in there, the personnel wages, really, they're all under contract. Whether it be the department head or the union members, and essentially it's everybody in the DPW, their salaries are kind of broken up into pieces and divvied up across the different DPW accounts, because they all kind of work in all different facets of the department. This year, you all saw my email from a little week ago about the Board of Selectmen, maybe 2 weeks ago now, the Board of Selectmen's updated numbers for the budget. And, one of the biggest changes there was the assessment amount in the sewer enterprise account. Lynn Water Sewer, you remember last year, we were being told by Lynn Water Sewer to expect a potential 40% increase on our assessment because they were going through contract changes, they were under an administrative consent order, things of that nature. They've now completed that contract, that operating and maintenance contract process, and the numbers came in much lower than they anticipated. So, we had a 40% increase built into the budget. It ends up only being like a maybe 10 or 15% increase compared to last year's assessment. Allison, do you know? Sorry for the pop quiz question just as you jumped on, but anyways, much less of an increase than expected. The other big change that we talked about that I sent you a couple weeks ago was actually after speaking with Dana and Bill, the recommendation was to utilize $325,000 under the sewer enterprise retained earnings account and pay down some short-term debt. So we've made that change as well. On the MWRA side, we saw, a little bit of an increase. We weren't the large, everyone in the system saw an increase this year. And the way that assessment is calculated, it's based off of last year's usage. So everyone in the MWRA system kind of saw a general increase because water usage due to COVID just went up in these, in the municipalities because people were working from home. I think it drew a lot more water usage at home versus at work. So a lot of communities saw an increase. I think ours was 8%. Allison, I don't know if you recall what our increase on the MWRA assessment was exactly.
I think it's 10.
10%.
Mm-hmm.
So not much, one of the things that we're doing with the current fiscal year, that Lynn Water Sewer 40% increase was built into the current fiscal year's budget. So the budget that we voted on at last year's town meeting for the current fiscal year under the sewer enterprise was built with a 30% more increase on the assessment for the sewer. So, our current sewer rates that we've billed there's 3 billing cycles in the fiscal year. The first 2 billing cycles have already occurred. That sewer rate is higher than necessary because of the adjusted assessment that we've now received from Lynn Water Sewer. So what we've done is we've calculated what next year's sewer rate is going to look like. And what we're going to do is the third billing cycle of the current fiscal year, we're gonna reduce the sewer rate to that number. So essentially, you'll see a little bit of a savings in your sewer rate and in your sewer bills, and you won't see any increase going into next year, should the proposed budget pass as is. That means, we'll certainly cover all of our costs. We'll probably build a little bit of extra, into the retained earnings, which, in the future will be used for one-time capital needs or debt payments or things of that nature. We're using some retained earnings in water sewer for some capital purchases in the DPW. It's the front end loader and the small dump truck. And then we're using some retained earnings from rubbish, again, towards the compost site as we continue to, make progress in that area. And that's the same as we've been doing over the last few years.
So Tony, just one question. Sorry to interrupt, but I sense the pause there. But so the retained earnings that we talked about, the 325,000. Bill and I, and we all talked about it, Allison, you and I, and we all agreed that we should retain those earnings within the water sewer enterprise fund, because water sewer fees should go towards water and sewer projects and so forth, or debt relief. And that's where it ended up. So thanks for doing that. Now the other 325,000 in retained earnings is going for vehicles that will be used both by water and sewer and by the DPW. So that sort of fits the mold that we're looking for, where water and sewer fees should go towards, maintaining the program. And so that makes sense. So thanks for doing that for us. And, I'm sure the people of Nahant will thank you as well.
Yeah, no, it was a good suggestion, a good recommendation. That's exactly what retained earnings is, similar to free cash. It's the same type of thing that you should spend that money on. And by using those funds towards short-term debt payment, where, that's from an emergency borrowing from 2018, that would be going towards that debt. There's probably another, I think Allison, you had said like about another 100 grand there.
Yeah,
So-
just over 100,000 left after we pay that down. So we'll pay it off in another year.
We'll pay it off in another year, which means we won't ever go long-term on it, which means we won't pay really high interest rates on it. So it's a great use of the funds, and will work out for the town.
Yes, and another thing too, I did review the Wright Pierce engineering study and, their plan. And I feel comfortable with the team that you've assembled, Tony, and I know that you will approach the whole project as a fiduciary of the town and try to do the best we can for the town there. And we are borrowing, I think it's 5.2 million, or is that the cost, or the 5.2 million for
The warrant article that we're going to present is going to be for a $20 million borrowing. What that will do is secure our SRF allocation.
Right.
But we're not, the way that I'm going to explain that, and, it's not just marketing, it's how we're going to approach it, is basically it's setting us up for the next, 5 to 10 years.
Right.
It's functions as similar to a construction loan, where you only actually, are borrowing once you're submitting invoices for repayment. So, that tied in with that construction capital plan that Wright Pierce presented last week, which, we're working on a trimmed down version of that presentation. That's how we're gonna explain it to the voters.
But I say borrow as you use it.
Exactly. Borrow as you use it. Yep.
And Tony, isn't this the 4 projects?
Yep. So it's the Ward Road Pump Station.
Exactly, and then
Willow
Willow
Forest,
Road. And
II work
and
and
then the causeway, right?
Yeah.
And the causeway is the one that's the furthest out.
Yeah.
Yep. And I
so
think it's important that people understand that this is for 4 projects with, those are the projects.
Mhm.
Yeah, so a couple more things to add to. We reviewed the Lowlands pump station upgrade cost summary in a little more detail. And that's $5.32 million. And just for the rest of the committee, just so you understand how that $5.32 million comes up. Part of that is a 30% of that is design contingency. So the 5.32 million is at the high end of the range. And then there's also a construction contingency of 10%. So conceivably, it could be, plus or minus, well, not plus or minus, but it could be overstated by as much as 40%, but I don't expect that. And I think that our partners at Wright Pierce, going to keep an eye on that. Another thing to add, though, I did read through some of the line items. So we know that big projects like these, there's going to be some areas where, like the $10,000 toilet seat in a defense department budget, or the $300 screwdriver. But in this case, I just wanted to note that the label load rating on monorail, as required by OSHA, sounds like a sticker put onto this monorail. That's $200. But I'm pretty sure the sticker didn't cost $200. But so we're looking at it. But Tony, I'm sure you're going to look out for the town on this, and hopefully it comes in within, not at the high end of the range of $5.32 million for this very important project for the infrastructure of the town.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Dana.
That's all I got to say about it. Bill, do you want to add anything?
No, mine, just borrow it as you spend it is my, and that's what's my summary of the thing.
Mhm. Yep.
It's the 20 million is the whole price tag, and you're not going to borrow the whole 20 million. You're borrowing it in piecemeal fashion as you spend it.
Exactly. Yep. And we also have an article in there for to utilize MWRA 0% interest loan of $500,000 so that we can continue to attack our water infrastructure capital plan too. And if you've noticed, we've had quite a few water breaks this winter. Something that Zach is keeping a close eye on, and we're bringing the engineers in and MWRA in to really understand what's causing those issues and where the vulnerable places are and how we need to update our capital plan based on that. So that's another something that we're looking into for the upcoming year. And really those things kind of layer in with each other too. When it comes to II, water work, National Grid doing gas work, and how that layers in with our paving plan and sidewalk plan, it's kind of a finesse of a trying to figure out how you're gonna, how you schedule those appropriately, so you don't have a road, dug up for a long period of time, but you're also not digging up a freshly paved road. So there's a lot of different layers that we're factoring into all that. So
just want to say thank you, Tony, for giving my report back to the committee. But I did meet with Tony and Allison and go over all of this stuff. And one of the questions I asked was, future plans, looking at water, gas, and sewer, and road improvements. And it sounds like both Zach and Tony have a really good grasp of what the town needs. And unfortunately, we can't have new gas lines put in when there's a water main break, because it doesn't work that way. But hopefully the long-term goals of the town is to fix this infrastructure so we don't continue to have these, water main breaks and sewer breaks. So thank you. And I'm very comfortable with what they did with the enterprise accounts. It sounds like, every year it's pretty much the same thing. We got good news that our sewer rates are going to be reduced, the next billing cycle and through next year. So again, thank you, Tony and Allison, for that work.
You're welcome. I was just gonna say, Zach, do you think I got everything?
Yeah, I think you summarized it well, Tony.
All right, can I jump in with 4 questions? And maybe I'm just gonna throw out my 4 questions and I'll take my answer offline. Number 1, we're reducing the the sewer bills, right?
Yep.
So the question 1 is that going to cause us any cash flow issues? Number 2 is, it sounds like we built up a fair cushion in retained earnings. Why? So why did retained earnings go up so much? And is it something we need to look at as we start to develop budgets going forward? Question 3 is, how may inflation, which is really starting to pop right now, affect any of these budgets? And 4, with the spate of water main breaks, have you noticed anything systemic that's kind of tying all those things together yet? You got that? And I can repeat any.
No, I wrote them down as you said them. So on the reduction of the sewer rates for the 3rd billing cycle of this year.
It's because Lynn's was less than we expected.
Right. So your sewer rate was calculated based on how much we needed to collect, which was based on how much we were planning on spending. And that was inflated by, almost 200 grand because they were telling us to expect a 40% increase. Ends up not being that much. So in the first 2 billing cycles, we've collected, I don't have the exact percentage amount, but call it, 85% of what we actually now need. So in this 3rd billing cycle, if our sewer rate is $14, if we wanted to reduce the sewer rate so we only brought in enough for what we actually need, we could reduce it to, say $8. But next year's rate, meaning the next billing cycle after, in 2 billing cycles from now, it's going to jump back up to, where it really should be at around 11 something dollars. So our thought is, instead of doing that to the ratepayers and having like a huge decline and then a little bit of an incline, let's just bring it down to what we expect it to be next year. So there's no increase going into next year. We still collect enough to cover what we need for this year, but we're not collecting in an extra $200,000. We don't need that much extra.
So Tony, can I layer in on that too? If we are applying these retained earnings to the extent that they exceed what the enterprise fund could use in a given year, and we apply that to pay down debt, we're bending the curve as we move into the future. So it's not, I would agree with you and not be inclined to substantially decrease the rates, just to have to raise them up again in the future.
Right.
My question was actually a little different. I'm fine with the way we calculated it. I'm fine with the underlying reason for it. My question is more about cash flow. So,
there's no issue.
We've gotten used to getting this inflow of cash based on higher billings. Now we're lowering the billings by, a noticeable amount. Does that cause any cash flow issues for us?
No, it will not cause any cash flow issues.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Yep.
Your next question was, yep.
Oh, go ahead and finish the first set of questions. Sorry, I have a separate question.
The next question was why so much retained earnings in the water sewer? A lot of that was because we were in a COVID year. We were anticipating, and we weren't really sure what to expect, especially on the utility rate side, how COVID was going to impact people's abilities to pay their utility bills. We were pretty confident, that, given mortgage, your mortgage payment, your property tax, like kind of goes in hand with your mortgage. It's paid for through that. So, we kind of had a little bit more uncertainty when it came to the utility bill side of people's being able to pay it. So we were very conservative on our spending in that regard. We also, Allison had just, joined the team. So we actually were cautious about paying down extra debt that we typically do, because we weren't sure if that money would come in at the end of the fiscal year with it through utility bills. So it, for this 1 year, it kind of built up a little extra, but it's not a year-to-year occurrence. Basically, the revenue came in. We projected, less revenue on the utility bill side. It ended up coming in, more than we thought. But COVID didn't have as much of an impact as we expected.
All right, good. So that all makes sense and lends even more credence to the approach of using the retained earnings.
Good problem to have.
Yeah.
Tony, a quick question.
No, hey, Dan,
go ahead.
Dan, I gave him a list of 4. He's got 2 to go, and then we'll switch to you. Okay.
I got 2 more. Yeah. Inflation impacts. We considered inflation impacts on all of our expense side for all of our budgets, throughout the general fund, or throughout the omnibus budget. As far as costs related to like big projects, it's really, those big projects are being paid for through those other sources of funds. So they're kind of, the inflation impacts that I think you're concerned about are, on like those larger projects. Mm-hmm. We did factor it in, our increases on things like supplies and professional services, gas, electric, the other items that are built into the expenses side of the budget.
All right, so it includes inflation already. Okay.
The inflation you hear about, we didn't go like 7.5%, like you hear about in the news. For town, we're tax exempt. We typically get better rates, on a lot of the stuff is, sometimes it's, bought off of a state bid contract, the prices are set. So, that major inflation impact that you hear about, like in the news, doesn't really hit our like municipalities the same way it hits, us as everyday, spenders going to the store and buying things. So we did increase it a little bit more than what we did in the past, but not to that high extent. And then your last question was about, the recent water breaks, systemic issues. Every water break is unique. Basically, when you have weak spots throughout the system, and different issues may lead to those breaks. They find the weak spots in the systems. It's something that you're going to encounter year after year. We have heard that we're not alone, you know, that other communities have experienced more water breaks this past winter. You know, I have a theory. I don't know if it's any good or not, but you know, we've noticed like an increase in the water table. We had a lot of rain last year, and you know, that could play a role in corrosion or, you know, freezing and thawing of the land and stuff like that, that's leading to some of the breaks. But there's really nothing major, I think, that you know, systemic that we're overlooking. We had Zach asked MWRA to come in this past weekend and put a pressure gauge that reads the water pressure in our system like every second or every 5 seconds to pull some real-time data to see if we're having any type of, you know, drastic rise and fall of water pressure that's leading to some of the breaks. I think we haven't really had a chance to really look into that data yet. But Zach, I'll let you go from there.
I mean, without getting really into the nuts and bolts of everything we're doing, there's always questions, you know, after every water break, why did it happen? And, you know, given that there were 3 or 4 consecutive breaks, like Tony said, we had MWRA come in and put a pressure gauge on one of our hydrants just to read the pressure to see if there were any spikes. And it was on there for 3 days, and they really didn't notice anything abnormal from just reading that hydrant. But we're still kind of in the middle of figuring everything out. We're going to have them test a few more hydrants to see if there's any, you know, valves that are closed that we don't know about, and things of that nature that may have led to some of the pressure differences. But like
I mean,
Tony said,
one of the things too is when you have one water main break, your pressure drops throughout the system. Yeah. And then when you fix that water main break, the pressure goes back again. So even having one water main break may potentially be a source of enough agitation, if that's the right word, to create additional water main breaks.
You're absolutely right. Well, and that's, you know, the break on Little Nahant Road was a major break, and it very well could have led to the other ones were more smaller satellite, you know, breaks that were easily handled, but it could have precipitated those events as well.
I think we're headed in the right direction.
Trying to turn over every stone.
I've noticed much higher than other municipalities pressure, and I've recorded on gauges at Bass Point Road at that house, much higher than Belmont or Norwood. And the year doesn't go by that I don't blow a hose apart down at the wharf. I suspect that we are seeing spikes in the system pressure at certain times. And it sounds like we're already investigating this, which is great, because I suspect that we're running the pressure high, and we're subjected to spikes that we don't even know about. And it's not a big complex fix either. It's a, you know, series of watts pressure reducers.
Yep. Yeah. And we also have, we have a pressure reducing valve that that we're looking into as well to see if it needs to be calibrated, and just looking at our pressure in general. And we do in fact have a higher pressure than most municipalities that I've noticed, which I've also questioned MWRA on, and I'm actually waiting for a response back from them, because we're running right around like 95 PSI.
I know, right? I know,
yeah.
that's like
some of the other municipalities
70 below is pretty normal.
Exactly. The data that they sent me was like 75. I forget the municipality, but it showed the same differences. You know, the range of differences were the same, but again, they were like 70 to 85, where we're running like 90 to 105.
Exactly. We're
So-
running 90-ish, and then when it spikes, when the thing can spike, then obviously the wink link is the aging infrastructure.
Yeah, so again, and MWRA has stake in it as well, so they've been open to coming over and helping us out as much as they can. And it's just going to be an ongoing process as we kind of rule out everything and try to figure out what the issues are.
May I ask, do we have a choice in what the water pressure is? Or does the MWRA simply send us and we get what we get?
So it comes in at a certain pressure, and it's all based on like pipe size and how the system's built. So you may not see the same pressure at Spouting Horn as you would, on Ward Road, just based on your location and the amount of the size and the amount of pipes that are between you and the pressure valve.
So where are the pressure valves different places? I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of how the system.
No. There's only one.
Oh, where is it?
It's at the end of the causeway. So it's before it even gets into town.
Okay.
There's that little brick building in the Rotary.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. That's the meter. So the MWRA house is a meter in there. There's an emergency disinfection facility for us, as well as the pressure reducing valve. So
the
again,
MWRA sends us a certain level of pressure that we don't determine ourselves.
exactly. Sorry, repeat the
Yes.
question.
There's a certain amount of pressure that is in the system when it gets to the Rotary. And then we have a pressure reducing valve in there in the Rotary. That's what Zach is, hasn't gotten to that point yet, but where it's on the list of things to rule out. That pressure reducing valve may need to be recalibrated or replaced.
Just so we know, the pressure is all based on firefighting. So it's really not based on everybody having the perfect, enjoyable shower pressure. It's the ability to fight fires while everybody's showering. So high pressure can be a good thing sometimes.
Thank you. That I understand it better now. Thank you. But checking what you're going to be doing is checking that valve.
Yeah, I want to just figure out why our pressure is 95, and I have really good hydrant pressure, so I'm confident that we can fight fires all over town at any given time. But why? Why is this the community that he sent me? Why are they at 70, 75? I'm sure they have issues at many different hydrants when their pressure drops to 50 psi and they're trying to fight a fire. But I'm just wondering why ours is so high, and I'm still waiting on a response for that. So it may be an issue.
Pipe diameter is a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on what our pipe diameter is, that determines flow rate along with pressure, not one or the other.
Yep. So
So, all right, so kind of two follow-up questions then. I'm gathering from this conversation, we haven't seen anything yet that would lead us to say, oh my God, we have a big capital project coming up here to deal with this.
no, certainly not.
Okay, and then could the high pressure be maybe the historic or current result of having leaks along the way, and we just have to increase the pressure to keep an adequate level of pressure all the way through the system if there are leaks somewhere along the line? Did that question
Well,
make sense?
in terms of leaks, we do, the leaks that surface on the surface of the streets and that type of thing, those are obvious.
Yeah.
But we do a bi-yearly leak detection system-wide. So we're really snuffing out these leaks if there's a minor leak every 6 months.
All right, so unlikely then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm good, and I yield the floor to Dan.
No, my question is answered. It's just the pressure issue, and it sounds as though we're addressing it as best it can be addressed.
Okay.
So we do have, you know, a capital plan on the water side. It gets adjusted annually, you know, as we experience breaks throughout the town. It gives us new information about maybe where, you know, new, like vulnerable areas in town might need more, like a larger repair. And then plus, you know, it's programmed schedule wise, layers into, you know, the other work that we might be doing on that street. So for example, National Grid came in and did a major gas upgrade on Nahant Road from Pond Street to Spring Road. So we are, you know, going to be doing sewer repairs, II repairs in that area this summer. Any type of water that would be necessary, we'd be going in there. You know, we might move it up on the list because the road's currently a mess, and we might as well get in there and do that now. So this way, when we pave, the road doesn't need to be touched for a while. So the programming or the scheduling of those capital needs kind of adjusts based on a number of different things. It's somewhat of a moving schedule, but you know, obviously your most critical repairs, sometimes you can't do it that easily. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but we try to work it out that way as best as possible. So this year, you know, we're going for 500,000 through the MWRA. I already mentioned that. But yeah, we're going through 500,000 through the MWRA zero interest loan program that we'll use towards water work that Zach, do you remember what? I know Fox Hill Road is one of them.
Yeah, there's a section of Fox Hill Road that never got done on a previous project. That's going to be upgraded so that all of Fox Hill will be on new 8-inch. There's a section of Mayolis Road. Same thing, an old project that got cut short because of funding. We're going to be upgrading, I believe it's like a 2-inch main up to an 8-inch. And there's a section of Winter Street that needs to be done because of a low pressure hydrant. And then, like Tony said, we're looking into some of these breaks. Sometimes you notice during the break that the line is compromised, and that basically catapults itself to the top of the list where you can say, okay, I've learned new information. This is why this break happened. It was because of an old, you know, whatever the pipe may be, ductile iron. So for instance, one of the breaks that we had, we're going to replace the whole line with the MWRA funding. So that way we don't get any additional breaks on that line. Anything else?
I'd also say one of the things that Tony told me is as we go through this process, or as we've been going through this process, and I believe it started back when Mark Cullinan was the town administrator, is they're mapping all of this stuff out. So they know that, you know, there's an 8-inch main under this road and it was put in this at this time period. And I mention that because I was in a peculiar situation where my house was off of a 1-inch main that ran alongside the main, and there's no plausible reason why, but every time everybody in my neighborhood lost water, I'd be the only one that had water, which was a great thing. But that pipe eventually broke, and I lost water and lost it for a while until it was repaired. But I was brought back into the main line. So it's just, you know, the great thing is that we are mapping this stuff out. We do have a schedule, and we are, with Zach and Tony's leadership, we're continuing to upgrade our infrastructure in a kind of a metered approach. So.
Okay. Any further questions, comments about DPW and enterprise funds? All right, so none, then let's move on to library.
Julie, it looks like you are like a protected witness.
No, I'm sorry. I don't have the light I need in here. Is that a little
I
better?
can just see your outline, like your shadow.
It was hiding.
That's better. All right, now you're off of the witness protection program.
Maybe we should distort her voice too. Give her that deep voice.
Public meeting, careful. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt before you guys move on, but I'm going to cut off. This is Zach. I appreciate. Thank you guys for everything you do, and appreciate it.
Thank you,
All right,
Zach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
sir.
for what you do. You're the one that's out in the middle of the night fixing our water leaks.
Thank you very much, Zach.
All part of the job. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
See ya.
So on to the library. I met with Sharon a few weeks ago and discussed what her requests are. And then I went and I met with Allison and Tony. And Sharon was requesting a 3% increase on the salary side based on the fact that the custodian, who is a contract worker, is scheduled for 3%. The town, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe the town came back with approximately 2.5% increase.
2.39.
Okay, with the exception, I believe, of the newest employee, the children's librarian, who I think is still in the grace period. And I don't think it's time for an increase in the salary
And
there.
the exception that we have to that is the custodian, who is union and therefore is getting a 3% raise.
Right, he's union.
So yes. So I see a 3% for him, 2.39 and change for everybody else of various amounts.
Correct.
If it helps you, I can go over the other things that are different between.
I guess
the
I'm not completely, are you okay with the budgeted amount for salaries and wages?
I do not speak for the board, but I believe the board was not amused that there was not a 3% increase. I believe the basic inflation rate is over 4% this past year. Whether they contest that or not is up to the board.
Do you know if they anticipate speaking at town meeting?
You're asking.
I'm on the board and I'm here and I'm happy to entertain any questions, but it seemed to us that it was reasonable that a master's in library science, received the same kind of raise as the custodian.
But the custodian is on a contract, which is predetermined.
He's union.
Right.
Yeah, exactly, which raises the issue of whether the library staff should be union. I mean, it's their town, working for the town. Anyways, it's,
Just a little extra clarification there, Ann. All administrative, even the union the clerical union, so the folks, the assistant accountant, assistant treasurer, and administrative assistant to the DPW are all getting 2%.
okay,
so
we
what-
were not aware of that.
So what happened, and that's fair.
We were not aware of that.
Fair.
So what happened was, if you rewind 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, the union, the police, DPW, and fire all took 0%, while everybody else got 2%. So to level it off, the next year, DPW, fire, and police got a 2-3-3. So over a 4-year span, everybody got 8%. So that's why, you'll see police, fire, and DPW are in a 3% year, but clerical is still in a 2%.
I did go back and I looked at the numbers on that. I'm not sure that Tony's numbers are accurate, but his argument is the idea that distributed over 4 years, there's somewhat a similarity between what the union people would be getting and the non-union people would be getting. I think there's a much easier way to do this, and that's what I had experienced when I first came on, was that whatever you negotiate with the union goes across the board. I was used to that when I first came here for the first 2-3 years. But that's not mine to say.
I think you can say for a fact that Tony's numbers are accurate. There's no question about that. Please do not call that into question.
Hey, I was wondering if I
Well,
could
it co-
ask a question. Is it time for other members of FinCom to ask questions?
Yep, go
I
ahead.
think we
Yeah,
have to.
I'd like to weigh in with the question of, do
Oh,
we
yeah.
think, back to
Wait a minute,
Bob's
Dan.
question.
Dan, hold on a second. I had the floor, I think, but
Oh, sorry.
it's just a quick question, Dan, then you can fire away, but I'm looking at the budget for the library. And I see fiscal year 21 actual salary wages, 133,000, just for round numbers. And then for fiscal year 22, it's 185,000, roughly say 186,000. So is that difference the new hire for the children's librarian? It's basically 54,000 more. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a regular increase plus the money for the new hire, plus a little bit extra. I believe it's 5,000 and change that was supposed to distribute down into the rest of the budget.
Okay.
Part of the problem is when you change the salaries number, you change the entire, the total budget. And the state requires that a certain percentage of the total budget be spent on materials that circulate. And so in this budget, that's expressed in 3 lines: library books, magazines, magazine newspaper subscriptions, and audiovisual supplies. Those 3 items should, in a perfect world, add up to 19.5% of the total budget. So if you change something in the salary side, you have to change something in the supplies side. And that's what we went to town meeting with. So yes, so it's a little more than the 40,000. It was the across the board increase first, the 40,000 second, and then a little extra to go into the materials budget to help make that balance.
I didn't understand that at all. I thought I heard was that
The
salary number is
ask
Go
a
ahead.
question about so the custodian got a 3% increase, right? Because he's in union, but is that a part-time position or a full-time position?
Part-time position, about 9, let me think, is it 9 or 12, 9 hours?
Okay, so, I mean, the 3% for a part-time job, we're not talking about a whole lot there.
Right, not in our budget, that's correct.
Okay, so, yeah, I have no quarrel with that. So, but those are the two things that I want to ask about. But then one more thing too is, are there any revenue sources that come from the library? Is there, anything, any revenue that the library generates, like, maybe renting their space out or anything outside the box there for revenue?
The library both receives and generates a little bit of extra revenue. There is state aid, so doing a number of things that keep the library certified as a public library in the state of Massachusetts. That includes that materials budget line.
Okay.
In turn, the state gives the library a certain amount of state aid. We have dipped into that when the budget goes beyond its regular budget. Currently, I've been trying to hold some of that back because we have some things coming up, including more capital expenses, the boiler. We're still in this leaky sieve of a building, and so we're not sure if other needs are going to come up. And just like the town administrator has talked about not depending on free cash to take, which is an unknown number to plan for. Our state aid is an unknown number from year to year. This year it was about 4,200, but it has been less than that.
About
other years.
$4,200 a year state aid?
I'm sorry?
Was it about, did you say $4,200 in state aid?
Yes, about 4,200 this fiscal year.
Okay, well, just wanted to ask about that. Maybe any grants or revenue ideas that, we could work on in the future. But anyway, thanks for clarifying it. And,
Right, other new revenue sources, depending on, if I'm doing a program grant, I try and write in overhead as part of the grant. And so that becomes cash that's available to us for other things. We have some small accounts, donor accounts for purchasing books. I think in total at this point, there's maybe, I'm sorry about that. I didn't come prepared with that number, but it's under 10,000 total, if I recall correctly. And then there are the friends who are trying very hard at this point to put money away into the building fund with the idea that we're anticipating additional capital costs.
And again, appreciate that. That's the end of my questions, but I'd like to also see that kind of somewhere in our revenue stream numbers, just the state aid.
Okay, I can get that to you. It's called the State Aid to Public Libraries Account, or SAPL, and I can get that to you.
Thank you.
There are, if anybody else has questions specific to salaries, otherwise I'll show you two other things that are of concern.
Yeah, so I did have a question about salaries. I honestly didn't understand what you were saying about it sounded like the salaries and wages number is not the real salaries and wages number because it somehow got allocated to another place in order to meet state requirements. But whether it's overstated or understated, I'm not sure.
All right, I'll try. What happened at town meeting, as you I'm sure you recall, is the library stood up to ask for additional monies for children's librarian. They and I specifically asked for $40,000, and the children's librarian that is in place today is working off of that number of $40,000 annual for this fiscal year in salary. Then, but the total that we asked for was not exactly 40,000 in addition to a 2% increase to, to all of the lines. There was an additional amount of about 5,000 and change that was asked in order to increase the materials budget side of the ledger so that that would not fall too far in arrears. Because that amount, it doesn't, and I'll have to say, it doesn't matter where that money comes from, but that amount must reflect at least 19.5% of the total operating budget. What happened at town meeting was we were told that since we did not hold on the rest of the services budget, that we could not put that money anywhere else. And so today, that extra 5,000 and change lingers in the salaries budget to be transferred by the selectmen at year end. Now, the materials budget for this year is, I believe it's 50,048.90. And what we have in those lines is 47,857. It's actually a deficit there of $2,191.90. I am assuming that I am reaching into state aid for public libraries or any of our other accounts. A small amount is going to come in out of the grant that I'm working on. And we anticipate purchasing technology that is used by the public, which would count toward that number, in addition to the amount that you see in the materials budget now. So in other words, I have to go get some more money than what's in the materials budget in order to meet the state's material budget requirement. Does that kind of make sense? I know it's confusing.
Sort of, kind of. Can I try to paraphrase that back?
Sure.
At town meeting, the town meeting appropriated an additional $45,000, of which $40,000 was to go into salaries and wages for the new librarian, and $5,000 was to go into the materials budget in order to meet the state minimum requirements, because we bump up the salaries and wages and we got to bump up the other one.
Nicely done.
So but now this year, salaries and wages is salaries and wages. There's nothing extra in there to cover this other, but we're still facing a shortfall on the materials side.
Right.
And we're not sure where we're going to fund it out of, but it's not coming out of the town side of the funding.
Right. So the administrator's budget is now $4 less than the current year's budget. And so there's been an increase in many of the lines, including salaries, but there's actually a decrease in their proposal for the materials budget. The materials
In
budget.
whose proposal for the materials budget?
Excuse me, sorry?
I didn't understand. You said a decrease in their proposal for the materials budget and whose proposal for who is theirs?
The administrative, the selectmen. So the selectmen's budget is now increasing the salaries lines by 3% for the custodian, 2.39 for the other positions. There's a minimum wage position that continues at minimum wage. And then the materials budget, those 3 lines that I always watch because they are a state mandated amount, has actually been reduced. This year, that amount is 47,857. Next year, it's 46,104. So our bottom line is very close to being the same. 256,661 this year, proposed 256,657 next year. So materials budget is about the same. The requirement, excuse me, the materials budget requirement, the state materials budget requirement is 50,048 and change both years. However, in order to increase salaries, the proposal decreases the materials budget. So now the budget deficit, instead of being 2,100, is now $3,944.12. So it's nearly doubled from where it was this year at 21. Now it's gone to 39. It starts to get more interesting to find that money to make up what's needed in the materials budget. I suppose that very quickly that will start whittling away at state aid, which is fine probably for now. But I would suggest that down the line, that's a bad way to go, to try and balance a budget with an unknown amount from somewhere else. If that makes sense.
Makes sense. So I guess my net on this is we funded a new position, and in funding the new position, we also increased, or no, we didn't increase, but we threw the balance a little bit out of whack for the materials budget. So in funding the new position, we also created this requirement that we have to increase the materials budget as well, essentially in perpetuity. Okay.
I don't think that was, I thank you for that, but I don't think that was clearer when the perpetuity part was not clear, I don't believe, during town meeting when the request for the funding of the new position came through. Neither here nor there. What do we do now at this point?
Right.
Are there no grants?
I would actually disagree with you there because I gave everyone a handout that said exactly what we were going to do. I said on the floor in front of the town administrator exactly where that money was going, and he very specifically questioned where the amount of money was going and how come it was more than 40,000. So there's nothing that wasn't transparent here at the time, and I'm sorry if people didn't understand that. In the end,
the question on the floor right now is, are there no grants you can apply to for materials?
Not very easily, no. And frankly, those should have gone out by now and have not.
Because we look at the other functions that within the town who apply for grants just as a matter of course, and we get in quite a lot of money via grants.
I'm sorry, I have done that for every year that I've been here for 6 years. I believe I'll have to send you a sheet that says how much I've brought in grants year on year, including a $7,500 grant that I'm doing this year in order to digitize the artwork, which hasn't been appraised in probably 20 years. I'm putting together a comprehensive sheet so that can be done, and preserving those works online so that, God forbid, the place burns down, you have a record.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Approximately $250, if I recall, is to go to materials that circulate to the public out of that. So it is a small amount. Do I know of a multi-$1,000 grant that would consistently year on year cover circulating materials? No, I do not. Anything's possible.
Sharon, I have a couple of, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One, did I correctly hear you say that the board had decided to put some extra, is not a word we can use, but to put some funding over into the building sort of reserve?
Yeah, the Friends have done that,
The
yes.
Friends have done that. Could some of that, and I don't know what the sort of endowment issues are or the fundraising issues or whatever are, but could some of that go so we can catch up with
Some of the Friends money could be used
for the materials?
Yes, it's very possible that Friends money could be used for materials. We'd have to ask them. They're a separate 501c3 organization. So
Right.
A certain amount of their money is set aside, usually for programs, because if you look at our operating budget, there is no budget for programs. So, you know, grants and the Friends have essentially covered all the programs we've done in the past 6 years, or we do them gratis.
Right, but I guess what
we
I'm
find a way to
asking,
do them for nothing.
I guess what I'm asking is for you to think about and maybe discuss with the Friends, because materials to me sounds like the kind of thing Friends might think is basic.
I
And
agree with you, and I agree with you, and they have done that in the past. I again, it gets into a very slippery slope when a library's operating budget is dependent, as it already is for programming, on outside funds. I wouldn't recommend it as a regular thing, but yes, as a potential catch up for now.
that's what I'm saying. If
Yeah,
we've got
I
this-
hear you there.
Yeah, so maybe think about bringing that up as a one-time catch up, and then we can, going forward, discuss more about how to deal with this in perpetuity. Because Judy's right, this is something that's going to have to be always. Let's see if we couldn't.
Sharon, I have a question. Oh, sorry, Barbara, continue. Go ahead.
No, that was just the idea of whether we couldn't use that from the Friends.
I just, as a trustee, want to make the point that we lost a couple positions. So this addition of the children's librarian was historically, you know, a replacement of things that had been lost. So it is a slippery slope, and in order to keep our certification in the state, we need to keep the materials budget up. The proposal we made at town meeting was that 5,000 was supposed to be going into the materials budget in order to compensate for the new, you know, the additional salary expense. So, you know, speaking as someone who contributes to the Friends as a board member and as a friend of the library, I contribute substantially in order to build up our building fund. You know, so at some point we need to make these capital investments in the library, and we're trying to raise money to be able to meet this in the future, major investments that are going to have to be made, capital investments in the library. And it's really difficult because right now we've got the East Point, fundraising, and we put aside our fundraising because it's for the capital investment, the building renovation fund, because there's only so much money that we can raise in a town, small town like ours. So anyways, I just want to make that point that it's an important investment. I mean, we can go to the Friends, but then we're taking away also money that needs to be spent. It needs to be saved and to build up our building fund.
Well, I understand that. I was just talking about making up for this one specific
year.
Yeah, sort of catch up. That's all I was talking about.
Okay.
Karen, I have a question, and it's not a happy one, but given the budget as it stands at the moment, what is the first thing that you prioritizing lose? What do we lose? What do you throw off the boat?
Exactly.
I mean, what are the lowest priority? I know this is a difficult question, maybe unanswerable.
The last thing I throw off the boat is people, frankly.
Okay.
Because otherwise everything is just books on a shelf with nobody to curate them and make sure that they're good. We're listening right now how around the country people are trying to assert their own personal biases into library collections and to ban books that they don't like. Librarians are professionals who choose these things with deep concern and interest in serving the community, not to mention the programming and the personal services that we bring.
Oh, that was my next question. What about programs? What
Is there a question?
Well, the question is, if you had to make a hard decision, where would you cut out of programming?
Right now, we are doing programs virtually free or through grants or with the help of the Friends. If you look at our line item budget, there is no budget for programming. So what we have roughly in our budget now, it's about 2/3 of the budget goes to salaries alone. Then the 18% or whatever it is, it's not 19.5 anymore, but slightly less than that, goes to circulating materials, goes to the books, the movies, the music, the things that people can take home and borrow. And then the rest of it is overhead and paper. Pretty much it. Library supplies is mostly paper. The services are, the gas, the electric, keeping the boiler running another day and firing up the copy machine, making the phone run. That's really what our budget is. And there's not much else. So when you ask me what would have to give in this kind of budget, I don't know. Turn down the heat, turn off the lights. We've been joking about that around the office.
Okay, so there are no frills, there's no fat.
What's that?
There's no fat.
There is no fat in this budget. There never has been. Thank you.
But I also want to make sure that everyone understands how much we appreciate what the Friends do, and that these contributions, that the Friends have over the years. My mother-in-law, Marjorie Meyer, worked, volunteered, and I know the Friends. So this is just a really important, wonderful contribution to the library and to the culture of the town. So we want to make sure that you know that that's appreciated. And then I had one small question about it, just because I am sort of new here. Does that create any kind of an endowment? Is there an endowment piece to that? Sort of, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, there is no endowment per se. What the Friends have done with the building fund is it's a restricted account that they have restricted. And they have restricted it to uses to be used by the Board of Trustees, not even themselves. So it's really quite extraordinary. To be used by the trustees in repair of the building. And I don't even know that repair is the correct word there, but for the support of the building.
So it's like a building endowment, sort of.
Yeah, like a building endowment, but an endowment is something different in which it's a designation in which a substantial amount of money is put aside and all you can use.
I know. I work at an institution where endowment is huge, importantly. But
So
what you're saying is that
a restricted fund says
a restricted, dedicated.
Right, a dedicated or restricted fund. Yes, exactly right.
Thank you.
And then the board on its part is seeking ways, and then COVID hit, but anyway, is seeking ways in which to continue to raise funds, either to go to its own town fund or to help the Friends to support them in their fundraising efforts. For example, one of the small things that was done was we asked the town to allow us to waive fines. Any overdue fines up to now had been going into a town fund. They didn't go back to the library, they went to the town. And studies have shown that generally when you waive fines, you can instead accrue more in donations. And so we put, anybody's been to the library has seen the little box next to the main desk that goes to the building fund. And in fact, about twice as much money as has gone in overdue fines now goes to the building fund. So it worked. And I thought it was great on the part of the town to agree to make that happen. It was an experiment, and the experiment worked. I do have one other line in the budget that I'd like to call your attention to, if I may.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Oh, thank you. And yes, I should say, I agree. I totally agree with you. The Friends are amazing and absolutely vital in what they do for the library.
And the town.
Yes, they are, they have stepped in. One of the things that they've just recently done, since we were looking at all this artwork, was one of our, there are a few, but one in particular, we had a piece of art that is a picture of Egg Rock with the lighthouse still on it. It was sorely in need of repair. We've come up with about $4,000 worth of repairs needed to restore just the painting itself, let alone the frame. And the Friends have stepped up to take care of that painting. It's part of Nahant's heritage, so it's really important what they're doing. So they have stepped out of, in addition to paying for summer reading program, the April vacation program that's coming up, they are funding for free books for children as part of the summer reading program. They have paid for all of that because it's not in our operating budget. Yeah, they're pretty amazing people. I would agree with you there. Thank you. The final line that I just want to call attention to is that the electrical services line has been level funded under this proposal. And I'm frankly a little curious as to how that's going to happen. Spoke to Tony about it, and he seemed to feel that the addition of LED lighting, bulbs in the library was going to contribute to bringing down our electrical budget. We've had CF LS bulbs in there until March. So I'm not sure that that's actually going to make that big of a difference. And currently this year, we are already expended at 96.71%. We have an available balance for electricity. Wait a minute. $100.47. So we're going to blow that budget this year. And I will be transferring probably from purchase services, but purchase services is also where I would be taking money for computers. So this year's budget's going to be tight, and next year's budget is going to be tighter.
Okay. You and others have alluded to major capital repairs that are necessary. Can you give a sense as to what perhaps approximate dollar amounts, if you know them, and when?
Yes. Currently, we are working and have just received a signed contract back from Homer Services. They are going to be working to tighten up leaks in the roof, gutters, flashing, windows, and a couple of small things, vents and so forth at the bottom of the building. But the roof, gutters, flashing, and windows are the top things that we're trying to mitigate moisture that's been coming into the building and has resulted in plaster becoming damp, mold issues, leaks. Yeah, every time it rains afterwards, I go and do an inspection. I'm sure Tom does too, to figure out where things are and if the buckets we had in place held or not. So let's all cross our fingers that this year's project takes care of those. Then we still have some fungus growth in the back part of the building, the north side, because that doesn't get that much sun. That should be looked at very seriously because it'll continue to deteriorate those walls. The whole building should be repointed. So this year's project, coming back to how much does this all cost? This year's project is about $250,000, I believe. The next year, we did not put in for anything building wise at the suggestion of the town administrator, because he is holding off on some of the capital expenses, the town hall, trying to prioritize the library. So I thought it was fair to reciprocate and that we would hold off so that they can get their more urgent things caught up. Then it comes back to us for the following year. Again, it's going to be 200,000 and change are the estimates that I've gotten so far to repoint what all needs repointing. Some of the sandstone coins need to be dealt with, and to work on the growth on the north wall. Then after that, hopefully, we've completed everything on the envelope end of the building. Then we would start coming inside. While we're talking about all of these, that the library budget has gone down by $4, and I have to go find the money for the materials budget somewhere else, and what's going to happen if the electric bill is too much. I'm also watching the boiler. We've had the company that inspects it come in and spend hours fixing it. If anybody's been in the library when the heat went on, they heard the clanging and banging that it makes. So we know there's still some problems. It's making some new clanging and banging this year. So we're watching that that doesn't fail altogether. A holding tank has been replaced, and I know some other connections have been replaced. So we're watching that, but that will be, so it will be a question of which goes first. Do we get to finish the outside of the building? Or does the boiler go first?
Can I
And
just,
after that, we go to the rest of the interior repairs that need to be.
can I just interject something here? I think what is being asked for is an overall picture. And Dan Munnelly, I'm sorry that, Dan, there was some confusion. Dan came in to the meeting and then he was gone, but Dan, my fellow trustee, chaired a committee, a building committee that looked at the larger context of what needed to be done. He had a great committee of experts from town, and including Sharon. And, we're looking at some millions of dollars that need to be spent on the library over the coming years. And there's the electrical system. The library has really not received in previous years, previous administrations, the attention to maintenance that it needed. And we're dealing with deferred maintenance here. So yeah, as a trustee, I'm very concerned about the coming years and the expenses that we're going to be facing to keep our building intact and safe, and these basic systems running. And as I mentioned before, I was looking at starting to raise money for an endowment to deal with these issues, but it's not the time to raise money in the town when we face the pressures around East Point. And we didn't want to, be doing that at the same time as that fundraising was going on. So we know that in the future, we are going to be facing major expenses. And we are, as trustees, working with Sharon, are looking at how to be responsible about that, identify and prioritize what needs to be done, looking for outside sources of income wherever possible, and raising the money that we need to, not just relying on the town, but raising the money that we need to address these issues that we know are on the horizon.
I appreciate that. So, and I know that there's been CPC funds on that. And Tony, but I thought that we had asked at one point for a really comprehensive list of all of the town's buildings, and really a prioritization of where we need to go first, because we know that as the town goes, there's need everywhere. And if we had seen that, I don't remember it. And so I apologize, but did we get that comprehensive list?
I don't know. Dan's committee has a report.
Well, that would have been on the library. Was that just the library, or was that for all towns buildings?
No, just the library.
Dan's a library trustee, so.
All right, well, that was my question to Tony then. Was there a comprehensive overview of all the town's buildings and the work that was going to need to be done? Because we know that it's got to be done a little at a time. The library isn't our only need.
No, it's not.
There was in 2018 or 2017, Design Associates was hired through a CPC funded project to do an envelope assessment of
That's right.
the library, the town hall, and Ellingwood Chapel. And we've basically been using CPC funds and some Mass Historical Commission state grant funding, but the bulk of it really, I think in the past, since 2018, there's been, combined with the terrace and the work that we just went under contract with, and, the additional application that we are pursuing this year with CPC, there's about $600-something thousand that has been put into the library, or is will be put into the library after this upcoming project is completed. Most of it funded through CPC and targeted through those envelope assessments.
Right, thank you. It's not that we, so I guess I just want to make as a part of record that the library isn't being neglected. It's just in a town where there's a lot of need. So we're also talking about a town where we have our essential services are working in buildings that are insufficient. And
Hey,
so
we-
where do we put the money?
We understand that we're not asking for money. We're doing our best to
No, I
figure out how
understand
we can
that.
raise money. So
No, I
I just want to be,
understand that.
I want to be sure that, that we're not the only act in town. All the buildings have needs, no question. But what Sharon was asked for, to give a picture of what was coming on the horizon in terms of the library's needs. And I just want you to know that we're working proactively.
Thank you.
Not coming to ask the town for money to fix the building. We're looking for all the kinds of sources of funds that we can outside the town budget for that.
Thank you. I
We're coming
appreciate
for
that.
the pennies, the materials, of a few $1,000s, not for the big bucks at this point.
Yes, I
Is the
do agree
library-
that, I'm sorry if I may, I do agree that we're not the only ones that have this deferred maintenance problem. You have a lot of historic buildings in town. All of them are needing some work and some help. We are trying to do our part on the terrace. The bulk of the emergency terrace restoration project was paid for by a CPC grant. So of course that gets matched. So you, the town, are getting the most bang for your buck. And we got an additional grant of $70,000 in emergency funds from the Mass Historical Commission, another $2,000 from Essex Historical, and then this year an additional match of $50,000 from Mass Historical Commission. So yeah, we are trying to do what we do, and yeah, we write grants.
I mean, just and to belabor the point, frankly, when you say you, the town, it's us, the town.
Us, the
right?
town.
The CPC is us, the town. It's our money. So it's not that we're in any way singling the library out, but we're looking at a police station, we're looking at a fire station that's inadequate for the services that they provide. So we're looking broad-based. It's not in any way, for me, certainly, I'm not against the library, but I'm trying to figure out how to make the money go.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And so
is
then
it,
it becomes each of us trying to advocate for our departments, our buildings, and then up to Tony to look at all of those and prioritize out of those. I couldn't give you a detailed list of what the fire department or the police department are going through, even though I do know that they are both in grave need, as is town hall. But I can tell you about the buckets to catch the leaks under my building. That's all I can do for you.
so the library is a historical building and therefore eligible for grants, right? I mean, I don't know what grants are out there, but that's something we definitely should be focusing on, especially when it comes to the envelope, to protect what's in the library.
The money that we got from Mass Historical was the max that they would allow, which is a $50,000 matching grant. So we have to have expended $100,000 worth of total expenditures before we can get reimbursed for half of that from MHC.
And I'm sure
We're trying.
before we go back and ask for more.
Yes, for successive years when we can. So we've already received over the past 2 years, 125,000 from them. So, sorry, 120,000 from them. So, 70,000 and 50,000. So I'm less optimistic what might happen in the future years. But we can continue to look and see what might be out there in the way of historic restoration.
Before we go on, before you go on to somebody else, I just want to express my gratitude to you all for the work that you do on behalf of us all in the town. I think FinCom is probably the hardest working committee in town. And I just am in awe and gratitude at the time that you all spend on our behalf. So thank you.
Thank you.
I don't want to come across as being adversarial at all. I mean, I really appreciate that you're trying to juggle, all of these things and really think about what's best for the town. And I just want to express my gratitude.
Thank you.
I don't know. Any more questions, comments? No? Okay, then our
Thanks
last.
again, folks.
Thank you. Good night. Our last topic for the evening was sort of mysteriously just labeled culture and recreation. And
Well, we're for both. Okay.
Yeah, this town is full
I'm-
of culture and recreation.
Yeah, I move for that. Okay.
The library is part of that. The library is actually part of that.
yes, the library is part of that, and probably the largest. part of
Definitely.
that.
Well, that's nice, but we want to keep the toilets flushing too.
Right, right. I was
Oh.
gonna say, how's the sewer system, in a library?
Oh, please don't.
I know,
Please
don't jinx it.
don't go there. I'm sure.
You want an answer?
Can we use some of that sewerage money to fix the sewerage at the library?
He's Peter today while we're young.
When we get to doing the interior, fixing the bathroom becomes high on everyone's list.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how to follow that.
Yeah, as does the boiler, the heating system. There is no HVAC. There is only the boiler and a couple of units that for AC that we plug in, and of course now air filtration is so important. And then of course, since moisture's been coming into the building, you have to address the damage that's done. So I would say that all that interior work has not been assessed yet, so I can't even give you a dollar figure as to what that is, including the boiler, which we're looking at right now with the idea that there may be an emergency expense in the near future for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry
Dana
to
had
jump
his
in.
hand
Thank
up,
you
and
very
before we move to Dana, I kind of paraphrase back what I heard. What I heard is it's like $1 million, if not more, of significant repairs that need to be accomplished over like maybe the next 5 years or so. The intent would be to do that with how do I even say it? Non-town funds, but that might be CPC money, that might be grants that you've got on your own or fundraising that you do on your own. Is that kind of a fair assessment of where?
I think that's fair. I think it's going to wind up being a mix of various resources. But yes, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, and now non-town funds is not a good title for CPC money. I know, I just don't have a better one. Dana, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Bob, for recognizing that. So just a question about the budget book under culture and recreation rather. Military houses, general expenses. Why is that part of culture and recreation, and what is that for, by the way?
That's historically been under culture and recreation. I can't answer why it's been in that category, but That has to do with, you know, all of the Coast Guard housing, rental properties, and the maintenance and things of that nature. So we're proposing a large reduction in that budget for FY23 because the housing is closing. Tony might want to say more.
Okay, where does that stand now? If that's, if I could get an update on that, please.
The article that passed last year at town meeting said to give renters 1 year to find new living space. So we gave them that in September. So they have until September to get out of the Coast Guard housing. The subdivision plan has been approved by the planning board. And the next step for that is to go to the town-owned land study committee, where they essentially evaluate the land that's going up for sale and provide a recommendation to the selectmen on, you know, what the value of that property is. We have, you know, one of the buildings is vacant. It's been winterized. It was shut down prior to the winter time. There were 2 other buildings that became vacant that, you know, were able to, the management company had some short-term renters that were month to month. And they didn't need, you know, any significant repairs. So to keep the cash flow of rent coming in, they filled them, but again, they need to be out by September. That's, I don't know, do you have any other questions about?
So it's basically, once the leases expire, people are gonna be, well, there's an approval process that has to happen first, right? Town Land Committee?
Yeah, so they provide a recommendation to the selectmen. Ultimately, you know, the vote to sell the property, I guess, or to initiate the Chapter 30B process is controlled by the selectmen. Once the Town Land Study Committee completes their process, it goes to the selectmen to start, you know, their process. In the meantime, you know, after September, we can start utilizing the borrowing funds to, you know, demolish the old structures and prepare the property.
Tony, whatever happened to the follow-up on the oil tanks that are underground?
What follow-up do you mean?
You were
Like,
hoping to
what
go
it would
back to the
take to get-
government, the part of the government cradle to grave stuff.
You know, Peter could probably give us a better answer to that. I think, you know, him and Dan Script and I was kind of part of it, but you guys focused on it more than I did. You know, I think exhausted, you know, those roads as far as they possibly could. And I think the federal government basically, you know, said it's our issue to deal with.
Yeah,
Peter?
yeah, I
Did
agree.
they tell you to go pound sand?
Yeah, pretty much. I think the kind of the hold off is that when we go to remove the tanks, if we find any of those tanks have leaked, I think that's when we really go back to the government to, you know, to press our luck as much as possible. I think that's kind of like, you know, yes, it costs money to remove the oil tanks, but it's going to be even worse if there's a leak. And I think that's kind of, Dan and I had kind of preliminary discussions about that. So nothing, I mean, I can reach out to Dan again and see if he's made any headway. I mean, when we did need I'm going to say it was a deed clarification, confirmatory deed is the actual legal term, because the property that, and I think Judy, you know this, I guess is more for the other committee members. So the property that we sold to the US government and then they sold back to us, or we gave to the government. And when they gave it back to us, there was a discrepancy in kind of the square footage of that property. So Dan was very successful and it was actually fairly easy. The woman who worked on the deed actually still worked in the government office. And we were able to get that fairly easily, but unfortunately, I think it's a different department that would give us, any ease with those oil tanks. So for right now, I guess I'll take that away just to see if Dan has any further information on it.
Well, thank you for that, Peter, but we don't have, again, thank you for the clarification. We no longer have a problem with the deed.
Right.
That's
Yeah, the
good.
deed is, yeah.
That's good news.
Yes, that was actually a big issue because that created a whole bunch of variances with the property that would have, maybe the planning board would have thought differently about approving the subdivision, so.
Okay, any more on culture and recreation line items?
So the other departments that kind of fall under culture and recreation include the Council on Aging. It also includes the Veterans Agent. Those are the two larger ones besides the library. So for the Veterans Agent, the budget's actually decreasing for FY23. And that's because we're estimating that there's going to be, or the Veterans Agent has told us that there's going to be a lower number of eligible cases in town to receive veterans reimbursement from the state. So we followed his advice, lowered that budget. The Council on Aging's budget is increasing just for salaries, but their general fund budget is offset by the formula grant that the Council on Aging receives from the state. So 100% of the salaries are not funded through the general fund. A portion is funded through that state grant. And then just the small other items are the sailing budget and the park and recreation budget. Those are going up slightly. Those are solely to pay for the part-time salaries that are paid out of those funds for the summer programs. I think that's about it.
Thank you, Allison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think we, the Veterans Agent actually, his office is in the COA, in the Council on Aging. They share space. And so we actually kind of met with them around the same time. And, with the projected decrease, the increase in the COA budget is basically like a shift from veterans over to COA. They offset each other.
Okay. All right, so I guess there's no more on culture and recreation, just administrative stuff. I have been remiss. I haven't done the schedule for having two meetings a week, so I will get that out by the end of the week. A question to the CPC liaisons. CPC was originally scheduled for April 6th, which is 1 week from tonight. Do you have any sense as would they be ready if we move them to the Monday slot?
That's a good question.
They meet on Monday. They have a meeting on Monday, don't they, Julie? They regularly meet on Monday, the CPC.
Right.
And that would be the only issue I would see.
And what I forwarded to the board, the draft is what they're going to finalize at their next meeting. So I'm not sure they'd be ready to see us on Monday, but I can ask them about Wednesday.
Well, yeah, well, okay, so I spoke to Lynn
Oh, okay,
before I started this. So she committed to the 6th.
okay.
Um, if they are not going to be ready on the 6th, could you let me know?
Sure.
All right, and then we'll keep them on the 6th, and I'm going to slot something else into Monday.
So, Bob, just so you know, if you're going to schedule a meeting for Monday, the notice has to make it to town hall by tomorrow,
Tomorrow, yeah,
because you need 48 hours of posting time, 48 business hours,
48 working, yeah, business days, yes.
business days, yes. So
Yeah.
just,
Yep. Okay. And that's all I had for administrative stuff. Last item on our agenda is public forum. I don't know, has any of the public survived this far?
There are a couple there.
Gee, look at the time. It's 9 o'clock.
yeah. Hey,
Motion to
Bob,
adjourn?
one question
before
first, Dana. On the other list, you have Articles 1 and Articles 2. Article 2 being to be determined. Just curious, I know what the Article 1 is. I'm on that, I'm the liaison, but I'm curious what Article 2 to be determined is.
Where is this article to, where are you looking at?
I'm looking at the department assignments,
Oh, that,
That-
okay.
the updated assignment list that you sent out. And
Okay.
there's just a vacant one, and I was curious what that vacancy for Article 2 would be.
Is that transfers? Is Article 2 line transfers?
No, I think he's referring to the schedule that Bob Vanderslice
Yeah,
sent out. It doesn't correlate to the
with
warrant article.
warrant articles. It's just, he just says Article 2, 4/20/22 is when we would meet, and everything is to be determined. So I didn't know if there was
Yeah, so what, Peter, what my intent was, I was asking you if you could head up the Lowlands.
Yep, I got
related
that. Yes, I've
articles.
already talked to Tony about that.
And
I've
then-
already, yeah,
That was it.
okay. Because
And
there was
we-
a second one on the list that it doesn't have any information. It's to be determined across the board. I was
Yeah.
curious if there was like I assume you leave that open for a last minute article that might hit.
Well, usually they're all accounted for, and the earlier ones tend to be like boilerplate sort of articles that just pop up every year. Kind of my intent or my thinking is, since we're going to keep CPC on Wednesday, let's do article assignments on Monday. The general scheme being, if the article kind of relates to a department that you are the liaison for, it would make sense that you deal with the articles as well.
Okay.
And that will still leave a bunch of articles that are kind of not related to any particular department that we're going to have to assign. I'd like to vote just the boilerplate one, get those approved as soon as we can, and then save the ones that are going to involve some more interesting discussion till later. But that would be kind of Monday night's set of tasks.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
One more thing before you go. I'll be very quick. I'm sorry. The Board of Selectmen meet next week. My goal is to, there were a couple articles in the warrant that were, still being written. They should be finalized, and the board will vote on that, and we'll send them to you, as of Wednesday. So the following meeting that you have that I could potentially attend, I'm happy to go over those. And the other thing I wanted to let you know is, we've after, reaching out to the moderator, the clerk, the selectmen, contractors, and kind of trying to anticipate, how many people may come to this year's town meeting. We've decided to move we're gonna have the meeting indoors at the town hall instead of doing an outdoor meeting. You know, it basically costs us 50 grand. You know, it's gonna cost us around $50,000 to be outside. We're saving like anywhere, you know, between like $30,000 and $35,000 by staying inside. And we really don't anticipate, you know, our capacity in the town hall is like 450. We really don't anticipate that many people, you know, coming to this year's town meeting. So we have decided we're gonna host it indoors at the town hall.
Tony,
gonna re-
question about the final warrant. Is there anything that we don't know about that's gonna be, you know, sort of on the bigger to medium side coming through the warrant that you can preview for us?
Well, we're actually going to be pulling there was a $50,000 in there for Council on Aging kitchen that we're actually going to be taking out. I've spoke with Senator Crichton and Representative Capano's office about finding outside funding for that, and they're going to ask for it on the state budget level. There's a stormwater bylaw that there was a placeholder in there that, you know, it really shouldn't draw, it shouldn't really, it's basically a requirement of the MS4 permit. I can go into more detail about it at a later meeting, but it really shouldn't bring a ton of controversy. And we're gonna have an article of our own for stormwater drainage, that kind of will work with, but somewhat counter to the citizen petition that, I've talked with Peter about, and I'm having a neighborhood meeting with the Lowlands neighborhood. I've already emailed them and, had some back and forth, and they understand it's coming and are on board. And then I'm probably going to have a borrowing article in there that's, generally for climate change adaptation. And essentially what that authorization would do would make us more competitive in future grant funding opportunities. So there's always a match requirement. And when you go to those, when you submit an application and you say, I already have authorization through town meeting, you jump to the top of the list. So again, that would be, something that, wouldn't be borrowed until you spend it or until you get that grant application approved. So those are kind of a couple things that you haven't seen yet that I'm be happy to explain more at the next meeting.
Thank you, Tony. Just wanted to, a little preview. Appreciate that. There was a motion on the floor, I believe.
Yeah, I think Bill or DeWitt, it's time.
I'll second it.
She and I.
Brown eye.
Barbara,
Laura
aye.
and I.
Oh,
Beatty,
I
aye.
skipped Beatty again. Wait a minute. Go ahead, Barbara.
Carmy, aye.
McMacken,
Laura and
aye.
I.
All right, I think this is
Bahora, aye.
a unanimous
Yeah.
vote in favor. The motion was to adjourn, so we are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.
Not all.
Goodbye from Florida.
Ooh.